Remember those African-American side dishes no one makes anymore? They fed big Sunday crowds and kept family stories alive with every bite. What happens to those memories if the recipes stay forgotten? Sassafras leaf potato. Mash carried the quiet perfume of old Creole kitchens where a handful of dried leaves could transform a simple pot of potatoes into something worth gathering around. Cooks began by boiling peeled potatoes until they turned soft enough to break apart with a spoon, then mashed them with warm milk and a knob of butter until the texture turned creamy. The secret came in the final moment when crushed sassafras leaves were stirred through the mash, releasing a gentle aroma that hinted at root beer and spring earth. Families served this side with roasted chicken or braised greens, letting the herbal note cut through richer flavors. In many Louisiana homes of the past, the dish signaled a bridge between Native American spice traditions and African American ingenuity. Though the taste was delicate, the memory lingered, making each bite feel like a quiet celebration of heritage. Today, the mash is nearly forgotten, but the scent of sassafras still carries the warmth of kitchens where resourceful hands created flavor from the simplest gifts of the land. Charred okra pod. Salad once brought the crackle of open fire to tables that prized bold flavor without fuss. Whole okra pods were laid across a grate of wood coals until their skins blistered and blackened, filling the air with a smoky perfume that drifted down quiet southern streets. The cooks then tossed the charred pods with cane vinegar brightened by a squeeze of fresh lemon and a pinch of coarse salt. Served warm or at room temperature, this salad delivered a soft crunch and a faint bitterness that played beautifully against rich meats or fried fish. Street vendors sold it in paper cones during summer festivals, while families prepared it for church picnics, where smoke from many fires mingled together. In the 1970s, you might have found it beside catfish stews or piled on cornbread slices for a quick midday meal. Today, the memory of that blackened okra lingers mostly in stories. Yet the method remains a testament to cooks who knew how to coax deep flavor from a single humble vegetable. Mustard seed. Rice custard offered a surprising hint of heat in what looked like a gentle pudding set out on revival tables. Long grain rice was simmered in sweet milk with a spoon of sugar until tender, then folded with beaten eggs and scattered mustard seeds before a slow bake. As the custard cooled, the seeds softened slightly but kept their delicate pop, releasing a warm and peppery bite that lifted the dish beyond simple sweetness. Families sliced it into squares for outdoor church gatherings where neighbors balanced plates on their knees while gospel music floated through the air. The golden top hid a creamy center that tasted of both comfort and curiosity, a balance loved by children and adults alike. It was an economical recipe too, stretching a few pantry staples into a dessert or side that felt festive. Though few kitchens make it now, the scent of baking rice with mustard still carries whispers of crowded picnic grounds and the steady rhythm of hymns under bright summer skies. Sweet corn and cane. Syrup pudding turned late summer harvests into a caramel-scented indulgence that once anchored Sunday suppers. Freshly cut kernels were folded into a batter of eggs, milk, and dark cane syrup whose deep molasses flavor thickened and sweetened the dish as it baked. The top formed a delicate crust while the inside stayed moist and tender, releasing a fragrance that filled homes with warmth long before the first slice was served. Children would sneak spoonfuls straight from the pan, the sticky syrup leaving trails across kitchen counters. Adults paired the pudding with roasted meats or served it as a sweet finale to a savory meal, proof that side dishes could double as dessert when times demanded creativity. In many rural communities, it marked the turning of seasons, when cornfields stood tall and syrup kettles bubbled nearby. Today, its memory lingers in faded recipe cards, a reminder of how simple crops once created luxuries that families still long to taste again. Ash-baked sweet potatoes carried the true flavor of earth and fire, a method as old as the hearth itself. Whole tubers were nestled directly into the warm ashes of a wood-burning fireplace or outdoor pit, then left to roast slowly while families shared evening stories. The skin blackened and crisped while the inside steamed into soft sweetness, absorbing a gentle smokiness that no oven could match. When pulled from the ashes, they were brushed clean and split open, a knob of butter melting instantly into the golden flesh. This side needed nothing more than a pinch of salt to shine, yet many added a drizzle of cane syrup for an extra treat. The technique required patience, but no special tools, making it a favorite in homes where frugality and flavor went hand in hand. Today, the tradition has nearly vanished, but the memory of those fire-roasted potatoes still warms the imagination like the fading glow of embers on a cool night. Dandelion leaf. Sauté with smoked garlic turned a backyard weed into a springtime treasure that thrifty cooks once prized. Foragers gathered young dandelion leaves at dawn when the greens were tender and mild, washing them carefully before a quick sauté in a cast-iron pan. Preserved garlic cloves smoked over hickory were sliced thin and added to the sizzling greens, releasing an aroma that could draw neighbors to the door. A splash of apple cider vinegar brightened the dish, while a pinch of red pepper flakes gave it quiet heat. Served alongside cornbread or spooned over rice, the sauté tasted both wild and familiar, a reminder of how African American cooks found abundance in overlooked places. In the 1970s, it appeared on spring tables as a sign of the season's first harvest, nourishing bodies after long winters. Though most now see dandelions as weeds to pull, those who remember know the leaves once carried the promise of renewal and the simple joy of food gathered by hand. Peanut shell stock. Beans drew deep flavor from what many would throw away, turning scraps into a pot of fragrant sustenance. Home cooks saved the dry shells after roasting peanuts, then simmered them in water with onion skins and bay leaf to create a nutty broth rich in subtle sweetness. Dried beans soaked overnight were added to this golden stock and cooked until tender, absorbing every hint of roasted peanut essence. The finished beans were hearty enough to serve alone or alongside cornbread, proving that ingenuity could stretch flavor beyond the obvious. Children cracked peanuts by the fire while parents saved every shell, knowing nothing in the kitchen should be wasted. This quiet resourcefulness reflected generations of African American cooks who transformed humble ingredients into memorable meals. Though peanut shell stock has mostly disappeared, the lesson remains. Flavor often hides in what we overlook, waiting for a careful cook to draw it forth and share it around the family table. Green peach pickle relish captured the bright tang of fruit before ripeness, a specialty of rural Georgia where nothing from the orchard went unused. Unripe peaches were sliced thin and layered with vinegar, sugar, and warm spices like clove and cinnamon, then left to ferment until the brine turned fragrant and slightly sweet. The firm slices held their shape, offering a crisp bite that paired beautifully with fried chicken or grilled pork. Families packed jars of this relish in late spring when peach trees bowed under heavy fruit, ensuring a splash of sunshine for meals long after the season ended. Its vibrant color and lively flavor made it a favorite at church picnics and Sunday suppers, where it brightened heavy plates with a taste both tart and refreshing. In the 1970s, many grandmothers still prepared it by instinct, measuring spices by sight and memory. Today, only a few scattered recipe cards preserve the tradition, leaving the rest of us to imagine that first sharp, sweet bite. Corn silk fritters turned an often discarded part of the harvest into a delicate side that surprised anyone lucky enough to taste it. Farmers dried the fine golden threads from fresh corn, then folded them into a light batter of cornmeal, eggs, and warm milk. As the fritters fried, the silk released a faint honeyed scent that blended with the toasty aroma of cornmeal. Each bite carried a gentle herbal sweetness, unlike anything else on the table, especially when served with a drizzle of sorghum syrup or a sprinkle of powdered sugar. Families enjoyed these fritters during late summer gatherings when every part of the corn plant was valued and nothing went to waste. Children marveled at how something once thought of as throwaway could become the highlight of supper. Though the practice has faded, the memory of those crisp, golden cakes reminds us that creativity once flourished in every kitchen where resourcefulness and flavor met without apology. Sorrel and apple braise brought together bright Caribbean greens and tart orchard fruit in a dish that bridged continents. Deep red sorrel leaves, known for their cranberry-like tang, were simmered gently with sliced green apples and a touch of brown sugar until the flavors melded into a sweet and sour harmony. The braise carried a striking ruby color that lit up the table and invited second helpings. Served warm beside roasted meats or spooned over plain rice, it offered a refreshing counterpoint to richer fare. Families with West African and Caribbean roots prepared it for holiday feasts, sharing stories of ancestors who carried sorrel seeds across oceans. In the 1970s, this side dish still appeared at gatherings where heritage was honored through flavor and color. Today, the recipe is rarely seen, yet its memory speaks of resilience and the enduring ties between cultures connected by history and the love of vibrant, meaningful food. Hickory smoked millet cakes brought the nutty depth of an ancient grain to tables that valued both tradition and bold flavor. Cooks blended finely ground millet flour with warm water and a pinch of salt, shaping the mixture into small patties before letting them rest so the grain could swell and bind. A cast-iron pan sat over smoldering hickory chips, infusing the cakes with a gentle smoke as they crisped to a golden crust. The inside stayed tender and slightly sweet, making each bite a balance of earthiness and subtle wood-fired aroma. Served with a drizzle of sorghum syrup or a spoonful of stewed greens, these cakes held their own beside richer meats while offering a gluten-free staple long before the term existed. Families enjoyed them at fall gatherings when the air itself carried the scent of hickory, a season when outdoor cooking was as much celebration as necessity. Though rare today, the smoky millet cakes remain a quiet reminder that even the simplest grains can deliver extraordinary taste when given patience and fire. Blackstrap molasses turnip. Bake turned a humble root into a darkly sweet centerpiece that warmed kitchens through cold evenings. Thick slices of fresh turnips were layered with onions in a deep earthen dish, each layer brushed with a generous pour of blackstrap molasses that seeped down as it baked. The slow oven heat coaxed a caramel edge from the molasses while softening the turnips until they melted beneath the fork. The result was a side dish that combined earthy bitterness with a rich sweetness, perfect alongside roasted meats or a simple pot of beans. In the 1970s, families relied on inexpensive vegetables like turnips to stretch meals, and the addition of molasses turned thrift into indulgence. Children loved the glossy glaze while adults savored the hint of smoke that blackstrap always carried. Today, this recipe lives mostly in memory, a testament to how African-American cooks once transformed the overlooked and the ordinary into something that felt generous, festive, and entirely their own. Chilled water. Cress and peanut salad offered a peppery bite cooled by a creamy crunch, a combination as refreshing as a shaded porch on a summer day. Freshwater cress was rinsed in cold spring water until every leaf snapped crisp, then tossed with roasted peanuts crushed by hand for texture and depth. A simple dressing of apple cider vinegar whisked with a spoon of honey brought a light sweetness that balanced the cress's natural heat. Served cold, the salad cut through the heaviness of fried chicken or smoked pork, making it a favorite at church picnics and backyard gatherings. In the 1970s, cooks prized it for its speed as well as its elegance, able to appear on the table in minutes yet taste like careful planning. Children enjoyed the nutty crunch while adults admired the sharp green bite that lingered after each forkful. Though rarely seen today, the memory of this salad endures as proof that true refreshment can spring from the meeting of field greens and a handful of humble pantry staples. Persimmon and cornmeal dumplings turned wild autumn fruit into a dessert-like side dish that glowed with seasonal color. Ripe persimmons were gathered when the first frosts sweetened their pulp, then pressed into a bright orange puree mixed with warm spices. Cornmeal and a touch of flour were stirred with the fruit until a thick batter formed, ready to be dropped by spoonfuls into simmering sweet milk. As the dumplings cooked, they puffed slightly, their edges absorbing the fragrant milk while the centers stayed tender and rich. Families served them warm with a drizzle of cane syrup or a sprinkle of powdered sugar, letting the natural sweetness of the persimmons shine. In the 1970s, rural cooks prized the recipe for turning a fleeting harvest into a dish that tasted both luxurious and familiar. Today, these dumplings are seldom prepared. but the memory of that soft, golden spoonful reminds us of an era when every fruit in the woods could find its place on the family table. Fire pit pumpkin wedges brought the essence of open flame to a vegetable often reserved for pies. Thick slices of pumpkin were set beside glowing coals in an outdoor fire pit, brushed lightly with bacon drippings as they roasted. The heat caramelized the edges while the centers turned silky and sweet, carrying a faint smokiness that mingled with the savory richness of the bacon fat. Families gathered around the pit on cool evenings, turning the wedges with long sticks and sharing stories while sparks drifted skyward. Served hot with a pinch of salt or a drizzle of cane syrup, the wedges needed nothing more to feel festive. This was a dish of patience and presence, a reminder of how cooking once drew communities together around fire and conversation. Though modern ovens can mimic the result, they cannot capture the scent of wood smoke on crisp autumn air. Fire pit pumpkin remains a quiet emblem of outdoor kitchens where simplicity and fellowship flavored every bite. Pickled Mayhaw berries captured the wild heart of the Gulf Coast in a jar. Foragers gathered these small tart berries from swampy thickets in early spring, their bright red skins staining every fingertip. After a careful wash, the fruit was packed into glass jars with vinegar, sugar, and a few crushed spices like allspice and clove. Weeks of slow brining transformed the berries into a sweet and sour relish that sparkled against fried fish or roasted game. In the 1970s, rural families treated a jar of pickled mayhaws as a treasure, bringing out the berries for special suppers or church gatherings where their sharp flavor cut through heavier dishes. Children loved the pop of each berry, while adults appreciated the balance of wild fruit and warm spice. Today, the mayhaw trees still bloom along southern waterways, but the art of pickling their fruit has nearly disappeared, leaving behind only the memory of that bright, bracing taste of spring preserved for winter tables. Spiced cane vinegar. Beet greens turned kitchen cast-offs into a dish with surprising depth and color. Beet tops that once might have been discarded were washed and sliced, then simmered in vinegar infused with cinnamon, clove, and a hint of star anise. The warm spices softened the green's natural bitterness, while the vinegar gave a lively tang that woke the palate. Served warm with cornbread or chilled as a salad, the dish added a ruby gleam to the table and a fragrance that mingled sweetness with earth. Families in the 1970s used every part of their harvest, and this recipe embodied that thrift and creativity. Children might wrinkle their noses at first taste, only to reach for a second helping once the spices worked their quiet magic. Though few cooks prepare beet greens this way today, the memory of that sweet and sour scent rising from the pot remains a reminder that nothing in the garden ever needed to go to waste when imagination guided the hand. Sweet potato leaf stir-fry celebrated the tender greens that sprout from a root most people only know baked or mashed. Gardeners clipped the young leaves in midsummer when they were soft and full of mild sweetness, rinsing them well before a quick toss in a hot skillet with garlic and a drizzle of peanut oil. The heat brought out a gentle nuttiness while keeping the leaves bright green and lightly crisp. Served with steamed rice or spooned beside fried fish, the stir-fry carried a taste both delicate and deeply southern. In the Mississippi Delta and across the South, this dish marked the height of warm weather abundance when nothing from the plant went unused. Families praised its speed and nourishment, often preparing it in the cool of evening after long days in the fields. Though supermarket shoppers rarely see sweet potato leaves now, their flavor lives on in memories of backyards where every part of the crop earned a place on the dinner plate. Blue cornmeal and sorghum johnny cakes brought a flash of color and subtle sweetness to breakfast tables and evening suppers alike. Finely ground blue cornmeal was mixed with warm water, a pinch of salt, and a splash of fresh milk before being ladled onto a hot griddle. The cakes cooked quickly, their edges turning crisp while the centers stayed tender and faintly sweet. A final brush of sorghum syrup while still warm gave each cake a glossy finish and a gentle caramel note. Served with smoked sausage or eaten plain with butter, these johnny cakes satisfied hunger with a flavor both rustic and elegant. In the 1970s, families prized the recipe for its striking hue and its ability to stretch simple ingredients into something memorable. Children delighted in the deep indigo color, while adults savored the mellow sweetness that sorghum added without overpowering the corn. Though rarely made today, these cakes remain a quiet emblem of a time when regional grains and local syrup defined the morning meal. Wild onion and pecan pilaf blended foraged greens and toasted nuts into a side dish that tasted like spring itself. Early in the season, families searched meadows and creek banks for wild onions, their slender stalks carrying a gentle bite and a fragrance sharper than cultivated varieties. The onions were sautéed in butter until tender before long grain rice and homemade stock were added, allowing every grain to absorb their bright flavor. Just before serving, a handful of toasted pecans was stirred through, adding a rich crunch and a hint of sweetness. The pilaf paired beautifully with roasted chicken or grilled fish, making it a favorite for Sunday dinners when guests gathered to share the season's first harvests. In the 1970s, the dish reflected a deep connection to the land, proof that the best flavors often come from what grows freely if you know where to look. Though foraging traditions have waned, the memory of wild onion and pecan pilaf lingers like the scent of spring carried on a soft evening breeze. Chestnut and collard sauté brought the hearty taste of autumn fields to tables where resourceful cooks turned simple harvests into something memorable. Fresh collard greens were washed and sliced into wide ribbons before being tossed in a heavy skillet with roasted chestnuts cracked from their shells while still warm. The chestnuts released a sweet, earthy aroma as they mixed with the greens, their soft texture melting against the collard's gentle bite. A splash of apple cider vinegar brightened the dish, and a pinch of smoked paprika added subtle depth without overshadowing the natural flavors. Families served this side with roasted chicken or a simple pot of beans, finding comfort in the contrast of tender greens and nutty richness. In the 1970s, this combination celebrated the turning of the seasons when chestnuts ripened and collards reached their cool weather peak. Today, the memory of chestnut and collard sauté lingers as a reminder of kitchens where every crop of the year found a warm welcome and nothing was wasted. Cane molasses. Rice popovers rose high in cast-iron pans, carrying the scent of deep syrup and toasted grain into every corner of the kitchen. Leftover rice was folded into a batter of eggs and warm milk, beaten until airy and poured into sizzling buttered cups. As the popovers baked, they ballooned into golden puffs, their edges crisp while the center stayed soft and slightly sweet. Just before serving, each was brushed with blackstrap molasses that seeped into the warm pockets, creating ribbons of dark caramel flavor. This dish turned the thriftiest of ingredients into something that felt almost decadent, perfect beside fried fish or a simple stew. In the 1970s, families baked them on Sunday mornings when a special breakfast needed to be both filling and frugal. Children loved tearing the popovers open to watch the syrup glisten, while adults savored the way molasses transformed everyday rice into an unforgettable treat. Few dishes capture the spirit of resourceful Southern baking, as well as these lofty molasses-kissed popovers. Okra seed. Hummus revealed a hidden side of a vegetable already central to Southern cooking. When okra pods dried on the stalk late in the season, cooks collected the hard seeds and roasted them until their skins crackled with a toasty fragrance. The seeds were then ground with garlic, lemon juice, and a drizzle of sesame oil into a smooth, nutty puree that rivaled any chickpea version. The flavor carried a gentle smokiness and a faint grassy sweetness unique to okra, while the texture stayed creamy and rich. Served with cornbread wedges or raw vegetables, this spread offered both nourishment and novelty. In the 1970s, older gardeners still remembered the practice, passing it quietly to those willing to experiment with every part of the plant. Today, the tradition is nearly forgotten, but the memory of okra seed hummus remains a testament to the ingenuity of cooks who wasted nothing and discovered new pleasures hidden inside familiar crops. Pickled kudzu shoots turned an invasive vine into a bright seasonal delicacy that belonged to early spring tables across parts of Appalachia. Young kudzu tips were cut before the leaves unfurled, their tender stems tasting faintly of green beans and wild asparagus. After a quick blanch, the shoots were packed into jars with vinegar, garlic, and a scattering of mustard seeds, then left to brine until they absorbed a lively tang. The result was a crisp pickle with a whisper of sweetness and a subtle woodland fragrance that paired well with fried fish or smoky greens. African American communities in the Appalachian foothills embraced this resourceful recipe, transforming a plant often seen as a nuisance into something worth celebrating. In the 1970s, neighbors traded jars at church picnics and roadside markets, proud of turning abundance into flavor. Though kudzu still climbs the hillsides, few people remember the taste of its young shoots, a vanished snack that once signaled the first true warmth of spring. Charred persimmon slaw gave late autumn fruit a smoky twist that startled and delighted in equal measure. Firm orange persimmons were halved and seared quickly over open flame until their skins blistered and their flesh softened just enough to release caramel-like juices. Once cooled, they were sliced thin and folded into crisp ribbons of cabbage and slivers of red onion. A light dressing of apple cider vinegar, honey, and a pinch of cayenne tied the flavors together, balancing the sweet fruit with a gentle heat. The result was a side dish that sparkled with color and tasted of smoke, sweet, and spice all at once. Families served it beside roasted pork or grilled fish, bringing brightness to heavy cold weather meals. In the 1970s, it was a favorite at harvest suppers where cooks looked for ways to use the season's last fruit before the first frost. Today, this slaw is rarely seen, but the memory of smoky persimmon against crunchy cabbage remains unforgettable. Sweet bay potato coins transformed everyday potatoes into an aromatic treat by pairing them with the fragrance of fresh bay leaves. Thin rounds of potato were slid into hot peanut oil, along with whole bay leaves that released their scent as they fried. The potatoes crisped to a delicate golden brown, while the leaves perfumed the oil, infusing each coin with a subtle herbal note. Sprinkled with sea salt and served warm, they offered a flavor far beyond the simplicity of their ingredients. Families enjoyed them alongside fried catfish or simple roasted chicken, finding the gentle bay aroma a welcome surprise. In the 1970s, this recipe passed quietly through family kitchens where cooks knew how to elevate even the humblest pantry staple. Children reached eagerly for the coins, savoring the crisp edges, while adults enjoyed the unexpected sophistication of the bay-infused bite. Though seldom prepared now, sweet bay potato coins remain a delicious reminder of how a single herb can transform an entire dish. River crab corn. Porridge captured the briny sweetness of tiny freshwater crabs in a dish both rustic and elegant. Ground cornmeal was simmered slowly with water and a splash of milk until it thickened into a creamy base. Small river crabs, cleaned and lightly cracked, were added whole so their flavor seeped into the porridge as it bubbled. A handful of green onions and a pinch of black pepper finished the pot, filling the kitchen with a scent of sea and hearth. Served hot with a pat of butter, the porridge brought coastal Carolina traditions to inland tables, carrying a taste of tidal marshes wherever it was ladled. In the 1970s, families along estuaries and rivers prized this meal for breakfast or late supper, honoring the day's catch with a preparation as old as the waterways themselves. Today, the dish is rare, but the memory of crab-scented corn porridge lingers like salt air after a storm. Toasted watermelon seed. Rice offered a clever way to stretch harvest flavors deep into autumn. After summer picnics, families saved the black seeds, rinsing and drying them until crisp. The seeds were then roasted in a low oven until they snapped between the teeth, their flavor rich and nutty like sunflower seeds. Folded into long grain rice cooked with a touch of butter, the roasted seeds added crunch and a faint sweetness that surprised every bite. This side dish paired beautifully with stewed okra or slow-cooked chicken, giving a humble grain new texture and taste. In the 1970s, thrifty cooks valued the recipe as a way to use every part of the fruit, letting nothing of the season's bounty go to waste. Children delighted in the crackle of the seeds, while adults appreciated the subtle depth they brought to the rice. Though the practice has nearly vanished, the memory of toasted watermelon seed rice speaks to a time when creativity and frugality guided every meal. Blackberry leaf. Braised greens brought a tea-like fragrance to the dinner table using a part of the plant many people never considered edible. Young blackberry leaves were gathered in early spring when they were still tender and pale green. After a careful wash, they were simmered slowly with onions, garlic, and a splash of cider vinegar until soft, their flavor carrying a gentle tannic bite like a fine black tea. The Braise released a perfume both earthy and lightly floral that filled the kitchen with the scent of awakening woods. Served alongside cornbread or roasted meats, these greens offered a subtle complexity that surprised even seasoned cooks. In the 1970s, families who foraged near forest edges prized the dish as a sign of the season's change and a way to honor wild harvests. Today, few remember that blackberry leaves can feed as well as flavor tea, but the memory of their soft green bite remains a quiet whisper of springtime abundance. Pumpkin seed and collard pesto blended southern greens with old-world technique for a condiment that brightened every plate. Collard leaves were blanched and pounded by hand with toasted pumpkin seeds, garlic, olive oil, and a touch of lemon until a thick green paste emerged. The pesto carried a deep, earthy sweetness from the collards and a subtle nuttiness from the seeds, creating a flavor far richer than the short list of ingredients suggested. Served over boiled sweet potatoes, spread on cornbread, or stirred into hot rice, it brought a vivid color and fresh lift to heavy meals. Families in the 1970s used it to stretch garden harvests and add flair to everyday dinners without expensive ingredients. Children enjoyed its smooth texture, while adults appreciated the bold taste that woke up even the simplest side. Though rarely made today, pumpkin seed and collard pesto endures in memory as proof that African-American kitchens could transform garden greens into a sauce as sophisticated as anything from across the ocean. Drop your favorite forgotten side in the comments, hit like and subscribe so we can keep this flavor time machine rolling.